D cubed. I am C cubed. I guess you'd be discipledave.com. D squared DC1. I was drawn to you by your comment in a thread that I posted on Mark the Messenger's stream. I don't know what to call it, but you caught my eye. I have come to this first video, which full disclosure, I started. You compelled me. You asked me to go the mile. I am one who listens. And I just paused it right here. This is real time. So I will go back to the beginning and I will be walking around, but I will be listening and interacting. So I am very excited just to meet a fellow. Actually, I gotta be honest. There's many people who call themselves disciples, prophets. I went to your About Me section, and already you show clear signs that you are a prophet of God, which is again why after that I was just like, all right, he's this kid's got some gusto. He's got some skill. Let's see his arms. So thank you, Dave. I would love to hear about your life on this mile. I live in the Mile High State, so let's get at it. Let's do this. I'm excited.
Asking you, and if you can do that, then please, I'm compelling you to do that. Watch the whole thing. Don't just give up when the first thing that comes along that I say that you don't agree with. Matthew 5:42, give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. Again, the very next verse. I'm asking you to watch the whole video. There is no video that I have done that is more important than this one. This is a very important video. And
oops. Sorry.
Hello, my Christian brothers and sisters. I believe.
Why not let's just drop the Christian. We're all brothers and sisters. Let's just call it that. And then I know if somebody's like, oh, are you Christian? Then I know exactly. But I just comments. Sorry, I will do like a lot of pausing and stuff like that.
But this
is how I do in real conversation.
This is my most important video that I will make, and it's probably going to be pretty long. So this video is going to explain the meaning of life, why we're all here, why humans were created in the first place. This is what this video is going to explain and inform you. Like I said, this is I believe is my most important video out of everything I've ever made or ever going to make. This is going to be the most important video. I want to read a couple of verses.
Before you begin the verse, my advice, and I'm just going off of just perception, I'm going to place you as, an elder to my generation. I was born in 81, November 5th, 1981. I don't know. I'm Asian. I I feel young. I look young. So maybe I've maybe gauge other people, but I hope it's not offensive for me to say you are part of the older generation from mine, X to the baby boomer. Excuse me. Whew. Which is why I say to my elder generations that when you use language like this is going to be my most important video that I will ever make, and probably, and just keep repeating that. It's almost like a self, prophecy for yourself. It's just like, that's it. And then, I do a lot of Christ consciousness. I've been really focused on just teaching, or at least developing a way to bring Christians back to Christ consciousness so that they have the presence of the Savior with them, like I had my entire pretty much. Yeah, I've it's crazy the revelations I've had in this time, which is why, like, I'm just seeking out these channels, looking through the seas, the consciousness in people, and just trying to help them. This is just kind of like motivate. This is just the talk that, especially in culture right now, we're hearing a lot of talk about rhetoric and the use of just more positive rhetoric. And so if you keep that in mind, just know that there's a reason for this. It's because this is all a test. Just on everybody. It's like God, I don't know if I posted the comment, but literally it's like God coming back from his day of rest on the Sabbath day. And now it's chapter 2, of Genesis, where it's like, this is the story of the earth and the heavens, like before God let it rain, when everything is just in all disarray. Why? I'm curious to know. But again, I hope you just take that bit. Like every video, Dave, that you are going to make should be more important than the one before. So one of the keys to the fountain of youth, or just rebirth, is just speaking as if, I don't know, like you're going to live to continue to do like very important things and stuff like that. Unless, you're really deep in this, which I'm looking for, some kind of prophet to confirm to the masses that I am who I am.
Matthew 5:41, and whoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. People.
Like Mark Twain? Like, the 2 most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you realize why. Is it Twain? Matthew? I've been doing a lot of fact checking for people.
I'm asking you to go the mile with me, to watch the whole video. There's going to be some things that you don't agree with right off the bat, and you're going to want to get out. You're wanting to click off of it. You're wanting to not watch the whole thing. But I'm asking you, the scriptures, I'll read it again, Matthew 5:41, from the words of Jesus Christ. And whoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. I am compelling you to watch this whole video. Whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, watch the whole thing and then be done with it. I'm asking you. And if you can do that, then please, I'm compelling you to do that. Watch the whole thing. Don't just give up when the first thing that comes along that I say that you don't agree with. Matthew 5:42, give to him that asketh thee, and from him that would borrow of thee turn not thou away. Again, the very next verse. I'm asking you to watch the whole video. There is no other video that I have done that is more important than this one. This is a very important video. And even if I say something right off the bat, which I probably will, and you don't believe it, please, I'm asking you, if you're a true Christian, I'm asking you to watch the whole video, whether you agree with it or not. Now, if I say anything that's contrary to scriptures themselves, not what you believe scriptures to say, but if I say or teach anything that's contrary to scriptures, that's when you're done watching. I do the same thing. If somebody starts saying something that's contrary to scriptures, I stop watching or listening to them. However, I'm telling you as a prophet of God, we might have just lost a few right there. Because I said I'm a prophet. You know, preachers can say they're a preacher, and that's okay. Teachers can say they're a teacher, and that's okay. Or even the Holy Ghost can give a person the gift of healing, and they say they're a healer, that's okay. But this generation, let the Holy Ghost give a person the gift of prophecy, and they say they're a prophet, and they're ready to pick up stones.
Unless you got a PhD.
But anyway, so we lost a few right there because I said I'm a prophet of God. I'm telling you as a prophet of God that nothing I am going to be teaching in this video is contrary to any scriptures. It will most certainly be contrary to what this generation believes is the truth. But again, nothing I teach is contrary to anything scriptures teaches. Period. All right, so let's get to it.
Let's get to it.
I want to take you back.
Take me back.
Okay, let me try to explain this real quick. You see this line? Say there's an imaginary line right there, and that's the span of the earth. Okay? The time from the earth being created to it is right now. That's how big it is. Now I want you to imagine this line, okay, that I'm talking about, goes around the planet Earth 1 trillion times. Okay, now I want to go back all the way to the beginning of that. I'm trying to tell you how astronomically long ago this was. Okay, the Earth span is that much of a line, and wrap that line around the planet 1 trillion times. Now we're going to go back to then. Now, I'm fixing to say something that this generation just will not believe, I'm telling you. Before there was ever anything, the Father existed. Okay? Now, the best way I can explain this to you is before any matter, before there was any electrons or protons or anything like that, before any matter existed, the Father existed, always has. The easiest way that I could describe it to you is look at it like pure consciousness, okay? Energy, okay? There's no physical nothing. It's just pure consciousness, pure energy, pure light, okay?
There you go. There's the three.
After existing for eons and eons, I cannot go back, I cannot stress how far back this is in time frame, okay? But before anything was ever created, before even Jesus Christ, okay, the Father existed. Consciousness, energy, pure light. And
if I may, it's like when people ask, like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? It's like, the cock comes first, right?
Then something happened where he became self-aware. The I am. That statement alone, I am, is consciousness, being self-aware. So the Father was aware, I am, that he exists. He always has existed. He's never not existed. But it was only at a certain time frame, at a certain point, to where he realized that I am. Consciousness, where he realized that he existed. It was at this time that he also became aware, I am, that he was alone. So what he did is he created a human-looking being, okay? Head, arms, feet, everything. He created this and called his name Jesus, okay? His first son, his first begotten, of the Father. The very first thing the Father created was Jesus Christ, and he created him immortal, where he can never die. He's a God. Okay, he's a deity. He is God. And the Father instructed Jesus Christ to create whatever he wanted to create, the universe. Okay? So Jesus Christ made all things that were made. Were made. Jesus Christ was not made. Jesus Christ himself was created by the Father. Jesus made all things that were made according to the Word of God. Okay? That were physical. The Father made Jesus Christ his first begotten Son. Begotten means created. Okay? And then Jesus he was God. He was immortal. Now Jesus, what he did is he created more individuals that were like himself. Okay?
Christ.
That is what he did. He made other...
This is where we have to stop you and say that this is what I meant to do with the Gentiles who were outcasted by the descendants of Adam, the original sinners. But again, as I'm listening to this, I'm just curious just to hear, I don't know. I typically always start at Genesis, but if we're going to start at the beginning of this is interesting to me because, again, my revelation, where it's just like I am going to be labeled as like the most narcissistic, grandiose case profile by so-called doctors and psychologists, like they tried to do before. And then I was like, Mom, we don't need to pay these people. And my dad was like, not in for it anyways. Again, I find, all right, I'm like, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Time, year 0 AD, the year of the Lord, time as we know it, our timeline, you are absolutely correct, is all around this one man that we read about in Scripture. You are not wrong about that, sir.
Like cloning himself with others, okay? The brothers and sisters of Jesus Christ, okay? Then he made a throne, for the Father, so he could dwell in there. He made him a throne, and Jesus sat to the right of the throne. The Father sits in the middle of the throne. Jesus Christ sits on the right of the Father, and the Holy Ghost sits on the left of the Father, of this throne, like it's a 3-tiered throne. But anyways, Jesus Christ duplicated himself, okay? He didn't create the inhabitants of heaven less than himself. I mean, this is really hard to explain, but Jesus Christ created others like himself, immortal. He created none of them could be killed. And then he created the temple for his Father because he was creating the universe. He was creating planets and galaxies. And then he created all these inhabitants and told them to create and do whatever you want to do. So they were out there doing all the kind of. Now Jesus is the first. He's the only one that the Father created. Okay, but Jesus himself created all the inhabitants of heaven. I know this sounds difficult to believe, but hear me out to the end of the video. So all these individuals that were in heaven, and there's trillions and trillions of them. There's trillions. But anyways,
let me stop you for a second because I just want to. It's crazy because I was told this same thing. Okay, so maybe this is a sign for you to prove this. But I remember when I was given, it was the wildest thing because it was like right when I was starting comedy, I was helping out, a brother who, would have been like, I was completely transparent with him. I just said, "Hey, look, I am about to get this tax credit from Obama for the first homeowner purchase," and we were talking, and he was just a father, trying to raise a family doing comedy, which I learned quickly. I was like, "How are you even? How many kids do you have?" And he's, two. I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" And a wife. And him and his wife are just having, disputes and stuff like that. And I was like, man, it just sounds rough for you. Like, and it was just one of those situations where my father told me a lesson where it was like, son, a friend doesn't loan a friend money. And I was like, what do you mean, Dad? Like, if a friend needs money, like, of course you'd like loan, like, so in that premise, with that preface, I was just like, look, like, how much do you need to get out of this, like, darkness that I'm hearing you're in, He's like, nah, you don't need to do that. I was like, I'm not saying I'm doing anything. Just, like, give me some figures, man. Let me just, like, I can help plan something. I'm Asian. I can do calculations and stuff. And, we itemed out. He's like, I'm X months behind on rent, this much on utilities, and I was just like, okay, so then if you got this total, then what you're telling me is that you would be on land rather than in the hole that I, see you in. And he was just like, well, yeah, pretty much. And then I could, then I could just, I was just like, and I just presented it to him, and I was just like, and I don't want you to turn this off, Dave. Give me the same respect. I'm trying to make this like an actual conversation, but like I said, I was just like, look, I will give you the loan for this, and I will give you double. I will give you double this just to, like, I hate, I got that lesson from my dad. Like, a friend doesn't loan friend money because, like, I had up the friend, just, yeah, I need to borrow this to get me out of this, like, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, here you go. And yeah, just never saw him again and stuff like that. Just completely dissed me. And that's when my dad told me that. And I was like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, obviously he's not a friend, but what are you telling me, Dad? And he's like, a friend doesn't loan a friend money. And with that said, again, I loan him the money, and then he, like, introduces me. I was like, I gotta know where you live, bro. I know we're both comedians, but, who knows what happens. I would love to meet your family just to, like, because I really have a soft spot for the father who shows me that they have their heart in the right place. And then relationship problems are easy for me. And so that's why I was really kind of adamant about just getting a sense of who his wife was. And when I did, it was like the first time where I was just like, wow, I've never gotten that vibe. Like, the apartment was just like a straight unit. You open the door and you could just see, like, the living room, like it was like a studio, but there were like bedrooms, and she was just in the very back of the apartment in the kitchen, sitting at the table, smoking cigarettes, like almost like she was like waiting for, Will to come in. And he was, hey, and the kids are like, Dad. So right there I could tell that, he was a good father. Just the way that his son's eyes lit up like Christmas trees when he came home. And then you know, he was like, "Hey, I brought somebody. You guys gotta meet Will Jr. This is true." You know, like it's like, "Oh, you're little Will," you know, and then, you know, like he's like, "This is, you know, Sandra," and I was like, "Hey," and literally, Dave, she just like put out her cigarette and just like doesn't say a word, gets up from the kitchen table, just completely walks around the table, blows me by, doesn't, you know, like just, "Hey, Sandra, nice to meet you," and just like I was just like, "What?" Just and you know, look at my buddy Will, and he's just like, "I don't know, man. She's probably pissed off at me." And I was like, "Geez, all right, I guess." You know, the way that men sometimes portray like the angry partner is just like when I hear the angry partner portray the spouse is like, "His dick's so small." It's just like, damn, dude, you must have really screwed up because like, yeah, you went from like 5 inches to 3 inches. Hope that's not inappropriate for you. But then, you know, I was just like, "Oh, well, yeah." And then she comes out with just like this, you know, one of those big gallon clear Ziploc bags with like, I think like 5 CDRs, the burnable discs. And I was like, "What is it?" You know, people like, it was the time when, you know, like, oh, Napster, and we were just all bring music. So I was like, I don't know what was really going on. You know, I was just trying to deduce it. It was like I was in the moment, and she just walks up and she's just like, "This is gonna sound absolutely crazy, but I have been waiting my entire life to give these to you. And I know that sounds completely crazy, but I beg you to please listen to these because these were meant for you. Come on, little spider, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Cool, like music. I love new music." And I look at my buddy Will's face, and he just gave me like this. And I was like, "I don't know, man." And I was like, "I love music. Thank you." And she's like, "It's not music. Please promise me that you will listen to all of them." And then that's it. Then I've done all I need to do. And I was just like, "What?" I was like, "I don't even know how to take this." But I was like, "Thank you." And then, you know, she just kind of opened up. She's like, "Oh, yeah, thank you for helping us out and stuff like that." And I was just like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And it was just a very memorable experience. And then when I finally just like sat down and, you know, like listened to the first CD, it like opened with this. It was just like, "You are," I thought it was for the longest time just like a motivational type thing where it was just trying to put you in a thought experiment where it's just like, imagine you are Helen Keller before she was born in the universe and being asked by the source, "What do you want to accomplish in this life experience?" And saying, "I want to teach the world true compassion." And the source goes crazy and says, "That is exactly what we were hoping someone would say. But what if I told you true compassion, to teach true compassion, I would have to send you to Earth deaf, blind, and mute later in life. Do you still want to go with that plan, or do you want to pick something else? It's completely up to you." And then the CD's just like, "And if you know about Helen Keller," you know, and I was just like, "Okay." And then it kind of went in depth, just saying, "Now this is where the source asks all the souls in heaven with this one, who amongst you are willing to go down to this earth to commit yourselves to helping this soul accomplish this goal, this dream. And everybody was just like, ah. And then the source says, that's great. But what if I told you that you too would have to be deafblind, mute? And then, it explains like this is when the souls were just like, ooh. But then there was one that came up and said, I volunteer. And the source said, that's great. We're so grateful that you will help. And you both will live completely separate lives from each other. You guys will be independent. But the moment you two cross paths, you will instantly know what it is that ties your souls together. And I will send the rest of these souls in heaven to protect you. But it's you. And he said that, I looked it up, and her teacher and something, it all fit. And I was just like, oh wow, I just got like bio profile on Helen Keller and stuff. I love learning, but just went into all these archetypes, and it just kept telling me like, you are the creator. And I was just like, all right. I think I could do this comedy thing, and again, I just wanted to get that out, because it was just like, yeah, there's all these C's. So
he also created the temple, for his Father, to the light, pure light and pure energy to dwell in. And he also made special beings to serve in the temple with God. So he made these beings even more magnificent than his own self. Jesus Christ, humble, meek, right? He's just what Father made him. But when Jesus made the cherubims, made them magnificent looking with just beautiful, very, very beautiful. Now, what you really need to do is watch this video about heaven. Okay, go watch it, what heaven's like, because that's what it was like before. Now, listen to me, people. I'm trying to tell you something that happened way before the earth ever created. The kingdom of heaven and the universe has existed way before the earth was ever even thought of. Okay? So the kingdom of heaven was going on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. For eternity it was going on. Everybody was enjoying this stuff. Everybody's out doing their thing and watch the video on heaven. But you have to understand something. Then the cherubims, the archangels, Lucifer, Michael, Gabriel, okay, these are all the ones that were made very beautifully. Okay, because Jesus Christ made them more spectacular because they worked in the temple. They were more special than the other inhabitants that were in heaven. Jesus just duplicated himself, so there was billions and trillions and quadrillions of those who looked human like Jesus Christ. Okay, that's why Jesus Christ calls us his brothers and sisters, because we are like him. Okay, we look like him. We are made like him. We are cloned like him. Okay, but the cherubims were made specifically like him. Okay, those who looked human like Jesus Christ. Okay, that's why Jesus Christ calls us his brothers and sisters, because we are like him. Okay, we look like him. We are made like him. We are cloned like him. Okay, but the cherubims were made specifically to serve in the temple. Well, let me tell you something that happened. Now, Jesus Christ, when he made all the cherubims and he made all the inhabitants of heaven, he made everybody perfect. Did you hear me? Everybody was made perfect. There was nothing wrong with any of them. Even Lucifer was made perfect in every single way. Now, Jesus also didn't want robots. He made everybody with free will choice to do whatever they so chose to do. Every 7 years, though, according to the time frame wherever they were at the time, every 7 years, everybody was to come back, and they were having a big feast and festival. But for the other 6 years, everybody was able to go out and create planets and do whatever they wanted. Okay, it's heaven. They got to create their own planets however they desired. Okay, but they would always come back because Jesus created a whole bunch of planets and galaxies for the inhabitants to have something to do to go explore. So you have to understand something. In the throne room where Jesus sat on the throne, Lucifer was there too. And the inhabitants of heaven would come into the temple. Okay, now Lucifer's over here thinking, are they going to come to me? Because a lot of the inhabitants went to the cherubs to worship them too, because they were made so beautifully. They were made so magnificently. Okay, so they would come to them too and worship what Jesus made, Jesus made the cherubims. And so Lucifer, when he was in the temple with Jesus, people would come in to worship Jesus all the time, but they would also come to him, and they would reverence the archangels too, because how beautiful they were. Michael and Gabriel was all there too, so they came up to them too. But because everybody had free will choice, something happened in the mind of Lucifer when, after billions and billions of years, all these people, he started getting to the point where people, when they come into the temple, he was hoping that they would come to him and worship him or reverence him. But when they would go to Jesus instead, he would feel let down. Like disappointed. Okay, they went to Jesus. Okay, now this went on for a very long period of time. Okay, and so Lucifer more and more desired that they all would come to worship him. And then something happened in Lucifer, his own mind, his own free will choice, came up with a decision that he wanted to sit where Jesus did. Because most people would come to worship Jesus. Most people came in to glorify Jesus. Jesus, I seen what you did at the planet over there. You are such amazing what you did with that planet. I seen the galaxy over there in the Zeta Quadrant, and it is amazing what you have done. So most people were coming to Jesus. Well, something happened in the mind of Lucifer where he wanted to sit where Jesus did. So then it was in his mind that could he possibly do that? Can he sit where Jesus did? Now you have to understand something. The archangels were made much, much more impressively, they're immortal too, than Jesus was. Jesus looked like a mere human being, okay? He didn't go around shooting lightning from his fingertips. He just sat on the throne. He didn't show off all his power that he had. All that stuff that he did way before the inhabitants of heaven were even created. Okay, so here Jesus sat on the throne, and Lucifer's thinking that he can take him. Okay, that if he was sitting there, I mean, the Father loves everybody, the cherubims, all the inhabitants of heaven, just as much as Jesus. So Lucifer thought that he can take take the throne of Jesus, but he knew he was going to need help. This is when Lucifer, because he had free will, he didn't stay in the temple all the time. He was able to go out too. He can go out and do whatever he wanted to. And then he started talking and lying too. Now at the time they weren't lies, but he was trying to tell people and promising all these inhabitants that, hey, if you do this for me, I will promise you that I will give you this. You see what I'm saying? So he was able to convince 1/3, and you have to understand something. These angels that he convinced to go with him, they had no idea that it was even possible for them to have what he was offering them. Okay? There was no such thing as a temptation in heaven. Okay? But he was tempting them with things that they didn't have, and he was offering it to them. Hey, if I'm on the throne, I will do this for you. That's how Lucifer convinced them. And these angels that followed him were thinking, wow, I can have that? I never even knew that was even possible. I mean, I can become an archangel, for example? You can make me look like you, an archangel, while you sit on the throne? It doesn't really matter. What matters, though, he was able to convince 1/3 of all the inhabitants of heaven to follow his plan, to dethrone Jesus Christ.
In heaven?
And put Lucifer on the throne. Okay, now, one of two things had to happen. I do not know which. It was not informed to me, and I did not ask, and I wish I would have asked because I didn't. But here's what one of these two things had to happen. Satan was still in the process of gaining angels to serve for his cause, to try to take a throne. He was still in the process of trying to tempt the angels to follow him. Or the other option is he thought that he had enough with 1/3 of the angels. Either way, war happened. Now, there's a lot of people out there who say things like this. That, well, why, if Jesus knows it all, if God knows everything, why didn't he knew that Lucifer was going to do this? Well, I'm fixing to tell you why. Because it was never thought of. Okay? You have to understand something. If Jesus was sitting on the throne and then one day he decided, you know something? I'm going to check and see if anybody's trying to betray me. Then he could have found out. He would have known that Lucifer was doing this and all this was happening in his kingdom. But he never looked into that.
He just had trust,
you see what I'm saying? I mean, how can I explain this?
It was like unprecedented.
There's no such thing as stealing. Ever has been. Never has been anything such thing as stealing. Why would God look into all the inhabitants of heaven to see if they're stealing if stealing was never done? There would be no reason to look for people stealing if stealing was never even thought of or even done, ever. Okay? Right. Lucifer started sin. Jesus and God the Father, they didn't look into everybody to see who had sin because it did not exist. Lucifer created sin. Jesus wasn't looking for Lucifer to create sin because everybody had free will to choose whatever they wanted to do. Lucifer, the only thing in heaven that you could not possibly have is the throne of God. Anything else you wanted, you could have. I don't care what it is. In heaven, whatever you wanted, you could have. Okay? But the throne of God. You can't have that. That's the only thing. You cannot sit where Jesus Christ sat. He was the first created. He was the creator of the universe and everything in it. Even all the inhabitants. And now you have an inhabitant who freely chooses that he's going to try to dethrone Jesus Christ and take his throne. He wants to be worshipped by everybody in heaven. That was Lucifer's goal. He wanted to be worshipped by everybody. He did not want people to worship Jesus Christ. So, there was a war in heaven. Now, let's get back real quick. I just want to say, reiterate that the reason Jesus nor the Father knew that Lucifer was doing this because nobody was checking on the inhabitants of heaven to see. They weren't reading their people's minds. They weren't evaluating people to see if who's living right and who's not because it was never heard of. Okay? Once it happened,
unprecedented.
Then there's a problem. Then there's an issue.
Right.
Okay, but anyways, let's get back to let's say Lucifer thought that he had enough. Okay, that 1/3 of the angels following him or chose to serve him would be enough. So there was a war in heaven. People, did you hear me? There was a war in heaven. Okay, that's a problem. That is a serious issue that heaven has. A war, something that was never supposed to have happened ever. It was not planned. It was not foreseen. It was not foreseen because nobody looked to see if it was something that was going to happen. You see what I'm
Right.
saying? They never looked for a war in heaven. If he would have known there was a war in heaven if he would have looked at all the people who's going to start a war. But he never did.
Right, right. Like, once you start thinking of all those, like, not God, and by not God I mean fear, because God is love. It's all the fears of, yeah, like, why? I've never voted, Dave, because, you know, I don't know. I just put my trust in the other voters, you know, because I know my father and mother have me taken care of. So however they want to vote for themselves, you know, then, you know, like, this is just, I just truly didn't really see how this two-party system was going to work when I was back in high school. And now at 40 years old, I realized, like, I was right, which is why I'm running for president, you know, and it's all part of this Messiah plan. But again, this was a year ago, right? March 28th, 2021. This is crazy because look at your smile. My awakening was April 3rd, 2021. 4321. So just
Did that because it was unimaginable that somebody would start a war in heaven. Okay. Anyways, this war that happened in heaven was not a killing war. You cannot kill that which is immortal. When Jesus Christ cloned himself and made all the inhabitants of heaven, they were all immortal. The archangels, immortal. None of them can be killed or destroyed. That's how Jesus Christ made them. Okay? So Jesus Christ can't kill the devil, can't kill Satan, because he made them immortal. Are you hearing me? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was a war, and it's not a killing war. This war is different than the wars that we have on planet Earth. Earth is killing. You kill your enemies. In heaven, it was a binding war. Okay? You had to subdue a person so that he could no longer continue on in the war. So you have two angels. Let's say the Archangel Michael and the Archangel Gabriel fought Lucifer, and they confined Lucifer, and Lucifer can't do anything because he's got two angels on Lucifer. Okay? So Lucifer's bound. Well, Lucifer only had 1/3 of the angels. All the other inhabitants of heaven is 2/3. Okay? 2/3 of the angels came against the 1/3 of Lucifer's. They lost. Okay? Because in a binding war, it's all about the numbers. How many you have. Okay? Lucifer was 2-1. God had 2. Lucifer had 1. So guess who's going to win a binding war? Lucifer lost. Now, people, I'm trying to tell you something. There is a serious problem now that God has to deal with. Okay, for one, there was war in heaven.
and now
How can he prevent war from ever happening again in heaven? 2, God has to realize that, and really hurts because Lucifer was able to convince 1/3 of them, of the angels, to not want to serve Jesus. You have to understand something, people. This is a very serious situation that happened in heaven. Jesus has to come to terms that there was 1/3 of them that were so easily convinced and did not want to serve Jesus Christ anymore. They were willing to serve Lucifer. What's going on? What's happening? Okay? So there's a situation in heaven. There's a problem in heaven. God has a problem. You have to understand something. Okay, so after this war, Lucifer and the demons are all bound. Now Jesus has a problem. God has a problem. Wants to prevent another war in heaven. And the problem of how easily it was to convince 1/3 of them to follow Lucifer. Okay?
Right? Just to be tempted.
So
by
he's got
the
an
dream
issue
of
that he has
becoming
to
an
address.
archangel.
If it was so easy for 1/3 of them to follow Lucifer, what about the remainder? What if Lucifer had enough time? Would he have been able to convince all of the angels to go to do this? If he had enough time, would he be able to have convinced more than just 1/3? Maybe he would, because of his promises or whatever, he would be able to convince the rest of the 2/3.
Let's eliminate time. What if he just made his move when he had half? That's a scary thought. What if he just was patient and was just like, all right. And you know, like, that's the thing about Lucifer, is just like, they are literally like the rabbit. Only the rabbit falls asleep when they get to the finish line, but as like the turtle creeping up, who's seeing all these dead animals that they've just left in the wake. I had been shown that, yeah, like my finish line was like, it's like, oh snap.
So
You're
here's
absolutely
the
right,
thing.
Dave. This is a
Jesus
problem.
Christ is not a tyrant. He's not going to force people to worship him or be in heaven or in his kingdom if they don't want to worship him or be in his kingdom. Do you see what I'm saying? Jesus sits here on the throne and he's hurt, terribly hurt, that 1/3 of his inhabitants that he created were willing to turn against him. Now what about the 2/3? Is it once he binds Satan and Lucifer and he binds them, let's say puts them in a prison of some sort.
But this is where Lucifer wins, in a sense, where now he's got me questioning the 2/3 who were loyal enough to stand. And that's the double-edged sword right there.
What's going to prevent one of these others in the future to rise up and start another war in heaven? Because they have free will, they can do that. But here's another issue, though, is what if one of these 2/3 don't want to worship Jesus Christ and they would have been willing to worship Satan?
They just didn't
Okay.
hear the offer.
So here,
That's what he offered.
people,
you?
listen to me. This is what happened in heaven. Whether you believe it or not, this is what happened in heaven when the war with Lucifer
it's
and the
happening now.
1/3 of his those who chose to follow him, which are now called demons. But
And witches and
listen to me. This is why Jesus Christ. Now, I'm going to tell you a conversation. It's time for Judgment Day. Let's just go to Judgment Day for Lucifer. Lucifer stands before God. Gabriel, Michael on both sides. Archangels Gabriel, Archangels Michael, standing on both sides of Lucifer. Standing before the throne of God, the Father, and Jesus Christ. And the Jesus is the mouthpiece. He's speaking.
And so God is on
Because
the
if the
throne.
Father spoke, everybody in the whole universe would hear it. But anyways,
Well, no one goes to the Father but
Jesus
through me.
would sit there and say, speaking to Lucifer on Judgment Day for Lucifer, and Jesus says, now I don't know word for word the conversation. I really don't. I wish I would have known this, but I do know that this conversation took place. Something to this effect happened exactly how I'm saying it. Not that I'm saying the Lord told me this stuff, because he didn't, but he did reveal to me that this similar conversation had to have happened just like I'm saying it. But anyways, we'll go on. Jesus looks at Lucifer and says, so, how did you lose this war? And Lucifer looks at Jesus and says, well, because I didn't have the numbers. If I would have had the numbers, then I would have won. You've had 2/3, I had 1/3. You know, and so Jesus says to him, so you think if you had the numbers that if you were able to convince more that you would have won this war? And Lucifer said, well, yeah, I definitely would. I would have won this war if I had the numbers. I didn't have the numbers. So Jesus says to Lucifer, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a planet, and I'm going to cast you and your fellow followers, to that planet. And you're going to be confined to that planet. Yep. And you're going to help me test the 2/3 that remain in heaven that did not rebel against me. And Lucifer says, well, why would I want to help you do anything? I'm not helping you do nothing. Why would I want to help? What's in it for me if I help to test the 2/3 that I didn't get to yet? What's going to help? What's in it for me? That don't help me, so I help you test it for what? And Jesus says to Lucifer, you are going to help me. I'm going to create the planet Earth. I'm going to cast you and the demons, all those who follow you there, and I'm going to create humans on that planet. When I create a human, I will put one of these spirits, one of the inhabitants, the 2/3 that didn't rebel against you, into the flesh to live on the earth. How many ever you can convince to be on your side and not mine in 1 week's time, which, by the way, is 7,000 years. It's just 1 week to them where they lived. It's 7,000 Earth years. Earth is only relevant, time is only relevant to the planet that you're on. So the Earth's time is 7,000 years, is 7 days to the time that where the Father and Jesus were at that time. But anyways, so for 1 week we would test the remainder of these 2/3. And this, now stop real quick. You have to understand something. The testing of the 2/3 is going to prove to God. That's why humans were created, to be tested, to see if they truly want to serve Jesus Christ. You got to understand something, people. Jesus Christ only wants those who want to be in heaven, who want to worship Jesus Christ, who are not willing to serve Satan and follow his ways and be on his team. Okay? He don't want anybody to be in heaven that does not truly want to worship him. You understand that? It makes sense. If you have a house, you don't want people living with you in your own house that don't want to really live in your house, right? So you want to test. So Jesus Christ is testing the 2/3 who did not rebel, all the inhabitants, which are in the trillions and trillions that didn't. Okay, there's only 3.5 trillion, over 3.5 trillion demons. Okay, so there's 8,000 of the others that didn't get that are being tested now as humans on planet Earth in Satan's kingdom. This is going to test the humans that are on the planet to see who they truly want to follow. You got to understand something. There will be no more wars in heaven ever again, because he will know that all the inhabitants that choose to worship him, that want to worship Jesus Christ and be in his kingdom, that's all that's going to remain in his kingdom. Okay? All those who are being tested as human beings on the planet Earth right now are being tested to see where they want to go. You want to serve Satan and selfishness? Because let me tell you something. Any sin that you do is selfishness. Period. It's all about you. Okay? When you give up sin, it's all about Jesus Christ. You see what I'm saying? It's all about loving one another. That's everything. After it's all said and done, everybody that's allowed back into heaven after being tested, everybody is going to love one another. Nobody wants to serve self. Nobody wants to be like Lucifer and have everybody worship him. Nobody's going to be like the followers who are wanting the promises, whatever Lucifer was telling them. Okay? After it's all said and done, the kingdom of heaven is only going to have those who truly want to serve Jesus Christ, who truly want to love one another. Okay? That's what it's all about. That's what humans are on this planet for. Every single human. You right now watching this video has a spirit in you, and that spirit used to be in heaven. Okay? It is now being tested. It wasn't a demon. Okay? It was not persuaded. It fought on God's side when that war happened. Okay? But the spirit that's in you right now is being tested to see who you truly want to serve. God and go to his kingdom, or to serve yourself and be in his. Now, let's get back to the conversation. So, Lucifer standing there, and Jesus is saying to Lucifer, so, Jesus said to Lucifer, so I'm going to create a planet Earth, I'm going to cast you, and you're going to help me test all these people. Yes, you heard me right. Lucifer is helping Jesus Christ. Do you think God can't get rid of Lucifer off the planet? Really? Who do you think allowed Lucifer even in the Garden of Eden? He didn't sneak in. God knew he was there. He knew he was going to be testing them and tempting them to eat the only law that they had, just like in heaven. There's only one law you can have, the throne of God. Adam and Eve were given one commandment. One. Nothing else. Don't eat of the fruit, tree of knowledge. Okay, so God allowed Lucifer in there to tempt them to eat the only thing that they weren't doing, which is what Lucifer does. That is his thing. He tempts people to because, okay, let's get back to the conversation real quick. Little sidetrack there.
And this is where I had a revelation. And I put it out. And then I found Melissa Doherty say, like, the true test of Christianity is not loving Jesus, but loving Judas. And I was just like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, let's see how this goes. And then, I was like, I was very grateful to see that it sparked the wheel of critical thinking. She even says, like, yeah, critical thinking. And I was watching it, I'm like, she can't, like, just, as I'm listening to her, like, think through this. And this is where like, Dave, when Black Lives Mattered happened, I had, I just, like, put myself in, like, a thought experiment. Like, what does this mean? Like, what is the universe telling us? What is God telling us we're, like, lacking? And I, like, thought about it, and I just was just like, if this is an argument or a movement against police profiling and police brutality, then wouldn't it be more effective if it was CLM, Citizens Lives Matter? Like, cops shouldn't be profiling any citizen. So right there, this is where I call it my spidey sense, like, just went off. And I was just, like, it's like, I mean, yeah, it's wrong, but it's like, we do not need this movement to fix this problem. And it was just shocking that my own younger brother, I was just like, I mean, all lives matter, Wade. He's like, oh, you're one of those ALMers? And I'm like, what the heck are No, I'm a CLM. He's like, what's CLM? I was like, Citizens Lives Matter. He's like, that's not the argument, Charles. And I was like, but that's the problem, right? And then, like, with the COVID thing, I've always been, like, I've always put it in the hands of God. I'm just like, I have no kids at this point. I'm 40. I'm not married. It's just like, it was just, on ration, elders get it first. So it was just like, I'll wait, but then when my brother and my sister-in-law found out that they were gonna, have the first, next generation. So this is where finally I got to, like, pass the torch down, because being the oldest, it just kind of feels exactly like this, where it's just like, every time it just seems like, he's just jealous that I was born first because I get all the attention from, my father now as adults, and he never takes the time that he does with me to, get to know him. And I'm just like, bro, like, do you know how hard I had to work? Like, you really have to want this to do this, Wayne, but like I said, we've had our ups and downs, and we've kind of always been like entangled wavelengths, where it's just like when I'm, it's like the Jerry Seinfeld, like, I'm even Steven, or like the one where he's just like, when George is up, Elaine's down, and when George is down, Elaine's up. Yeah, I don't know if you know that episode, but Seinfeld's just great in that sense. But this is the problem, that we in the government are having. But in September 11th, 2001, it's pretty much this whole court thing. Just like, yeah, you know what? Bush put in the Patriot Act that just said we are going to monitor everything in this digital world. Now, with the Patriot Act, it's just focused on foreign terrorism, and then like America was on board with that. It's just like, yeah. But then the whole thing of privacy and digital privacy, all these companies like, are you worried about being tracked and all this information? It's just like, what information or what is it that, like, I just never it's like a VPN. I'm like, what the heck is that? It's like a private network. I'm like, what is that? It's like, it's just, you don't know what this is. I'm just like, bro, I don't care. Like, honestly, the only time I really go like incognito is when I just gotta like rub one out. Okay, like, it's just, I don't think, I'm gonna be on the top watch list if they find out like my genre. Although I will be a little embarrassed if that's like put on the table. It's just like, well, on this day, you really had this weird fit. I'm just joking around. You have to understand I was a comedian. And I found a great Voltaire quote that said, God is a comedian playing to an audience that doesn't want to laugh or too scared to laugh. But Dave, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I'm already 3/4 of the way, 2/3 if I put it into context. But like I said, like this, if I don't know the time frame between the posting of this actual video on March 28th, 2021, from when you had this, is this like a series of separate revelations, or was this just like a bunch of series that you finally like realized were all like pieced together? Does that make sense? Like V for Vendetta, you have no idea. My birthday is November 5th, and I started watching V for Vendetta. I don't know if it just opens up. Remember the 5th. I'm like, I already love this movie. I'm like, well, I hope you guys remember this for my birthday. Shock. But that whole movie. And now I know why. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. Dave, I feel like maybe you're like the detective.
So Jesus said, I'm going to create a planet, cast you and all those who chose to follow you onto the planet Earth, and you're going to help me test these 2/3. And Lucifer says, now wait a minute, I'm still asking what's in it for me. I'm going to help you test this, but I don't understand why I would even do this. You have to understand something. This is where Jesus says to Lucifer, he says, you are going to do this because you think that you lost this war because you didn't have the numbers. So anybody, any human that you, spirit that you can convince to serve you and follow your ways, you can have. And then Lucifer's like, oh, okay, this is starting to sound a little bit better. Okay, but for what? Say I gain them all. Lucifer is sitting there saying, well, even if I gain them all, and what's that to me? What's that? And then Jesus says to you, this is what it's for. I'm going to create the holy city, Jerusalem, which will have access to the entire universe. I'm going to bring it down to the earth. I'm going to bound you for 1,000 years. That's my Sabbath. Okay, so you can't tempt anymore. So during the first 6 days, you can get as many or try to get as many souls as you can to be on your side, to take as many as you want for your side, and then the holy city, Jerusalem's coming down out of heaven. For 1,000 years you would be bound. After my Sabbath is over, I will release you. Then you can gather up all the souls you've collected all for the whole week. You can rise the dead. They're yours to command. And then there's going to be one last battle. And Lucifer saying, a battle for what? And Jesus says to him,
the throne?
For the holy city, Jerusalem. Ooh. If you gain access and take the holy city, Jerusalem, then you are free and not confined, and you are free to travel the universe however you see fit.
To do whatever he wishes still?
And Lucifer, after him being not confined, and you are free to be one last battle. And Lucifer saying, a battle for what? And Jesus says to him, for the holy city, Jerusalem. If you gain access and take the holy city, Jerusalem, then you are free and not confined, and you are free to travel the universe however you see fit. And Lucifer, after hearing this, that there's going to be a big giant battle for the holy city and he's not going to be confined. Now, Jesus does tell him, if you lose, though, and you fail to take the holy city, Jerusalem, then I will cast you and all your followers and all those who you have gained through the whole week into a confinement area called the lake of fire. So Lucifer agrees with Jesus about this. He agrees to test the 2/3 on planet Earth. Yes, there is a covenant between God and Satan. Satan does what he does because God allows him to do it. However, there are stipulations to the covenant. For example, Lucifer can't just kill anybody that he desires. How easy would that be? As soon as somebody's living in fornication or committing adultery, kill them right then before they repent, right? Then he has them, right? So he's not allowed to do that. Okay? Everybody has a specific amount of time that they're allowed to live.
To live or to repent?
People, we are all on this planet being tested. If you're a breathing, living human being today on planet Earth, it is because the spirit that is inside you, which is immortal, cannot die or be killed, is being tested. Once it's all over and said and done, and the great white throne judgment, and Satan's bound forever and ever because he can't go out in the universe, he's going to lose the battle. He's going to come. He don't think he's going to lose the battle. But there's going to be a big giant battle for the holy city, Jerusalem, so he can travel anywhere he wants to. But when he loses, he's going to be confined in a place called Lake of Fire. He has to be there because he's not allowed in the universe. Therefore, everybody else that remains will have been tested. You see what I'm saying? People, I'm trying to tell you and warn you that the whole meaning of life, why we're here, is to be tested. To see who we truly love. If we love Jesus Christ, we will love everyone because he commands us, love one another. You do as those you love. If you love somebody, you're not going to do something that's going to make them upset. Period. Jesus Christ commanded all true Christians to love one another. Those who believe in Jesus Christ and love one another, watch this video about keeping my commandments, are the ones that will be accepted to live in his kingdom forever and ever. And there will be never again a war because all the inhabitants are tested. Okay? Lucifer right now, his goal is to get as many souls as he can because he knows the battle's coming. And he knows he's going to have the numbers. He knows he's going to have the numbers. That's why he works as hard as he does. He gets people living in sin. You know what living in sin means? Committing the same sin over and over again. People, that's living in sin. No sin that a person does isn't selfishness. It's because you want to. You got to place Jesus first in your life, people. Jesus first in your life, not yourself. He who finds his life will lose it, but he who loses his life shall find it. Let me tell you something. If you're living life and you're still living in your sins, you're still obeying Satan, he's got you. You're going to be his. I don't care what you claim with your mouth. I'm covered by the blood. I'm the righteousness of Jesus Christ. I got saved. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. If you believe you're saved and all this kind of stuff. If you are living in sin, Satan has you. You understand what I'm saying? There's a verse in the Bible that says, awake to righteousness and sin not. Jesus told a man and a woman, go and sin no more. I'm telling you, people, those who are choosing, willing, freely choosing to obey the enemy. Is there not another verse that says that? Who you obey is your master? Your master is to the whom you obey? People, listen to me. The scriptures teaches over and over again how we get back to heaven. Believe in Jesus Christ and love one another. Love one another is the key. For even love covers a multitude of sins. Another verse. Okay? People, we are all here to be tested. And I am trying to warn you as a prophet of God. I'm trying to warn you. Realize that you're being tested.
Not warned.
As long as you draw a breath, you better be loving
us.
God with all your mind, all your heart, all your strength, and all your soul. I'm telling you. Let me tell you something. If you're living in sin and you're obeying Satan, how are you loving God with all your heart? You're not. Your heart is going towards the temptations, whatever it may be. I don't care what it is. Okay? That's where your heart is. Okay? It's not with God. Love God with all your heart. Not part of it. Not some of it. All of it. And let me tell you something. You have to be willing to give up your life. Don't live life for you. Live it for him because the reward is so astronomically great you're not going to believe it. There's only going to be two places remaining in the entire universe. There's going to be heaven, which is the whole entire universe, and then there's going to be a place where all the immortals that did not make it into heaven are going to be confined. Are you hearing me? You cannot kill Satan. Satan will always and forever exist, but he will be confined. He will not be allowed to roam the universe as he sees fit. He will not. He will be confined, imprisoned. People, the meaning of life is you're being tested. You better start living right. I'm telling you, you better start living right with God. Stop obeying Satan and his ways, because as long as you're living in sin, he has you. I love all of you. And we'll see you on the next video.
Dave, the disciple, the prophet, you just blew my mind. Satan is God. What is heaven like? Getting saved versus... Yeah, I gotta say, I was blown away. I think I subscribed already. Yep. Dave, I hope this video finds you well. Let me know feedback here.